Hey everyone. So this is going to be the second video in a four-part series where I cover the process of decaling a custom figure. Now in this video, I'm going to be going over cutting out the decals in cloth. In the first video, if you haven't seen it already, I go over all the tools, supplies, and preparation that you need to make before you do the process. So if you haven't seen that, I'll go ahead and link it down in the description below. But without further ado, let's get on into this video. So of course you're going to need a cutting tool. You can use either a hobby knife or a pair of scissors. Personally, I like to use a pair of scissors for most things, but it is good to have a hobby knife on hand for a few of the parts. Especially for things where you need a hobby knife, you probably want to have a cutting mat like this for the background, just to press down so you don't actually damage the table as you cut. I'm going to cut out a couple of the pieces on camera, and then I'll speed through the rest of it and then show you the finished cut. So with my new template design, I've actually got this 2x4 square or rectangle up at the top, which you can apply to a 2x4 Lego tile or just display with a figure on its own. This is going to be very simple to cut out. You just want to get all the white edges off of it and make sure there's no excess, and just leave that little black outline and it'll fit perfectly on a tile. For most of these decals, cutting them is pretty simple. You're basically just trying to get as close to the design as you can without actually cutting into the design. I do have these black outlines surrounding each of the designs. They do serve as kind of a guide, but really you probably want to get as close as you can. I can't get it as close as I would want to cut per se, just due to the thickness of the lines. But basically you just want to have as little excess as you can, because these decals are on a transparent backing paper. So although the color won't show up if you leave extra bits, it will leave a little bit of clear film on the edges. So I'll go ahead and cut out the two torso pieces on camera. So I like to use the scissors for a lot of the cutting because it goes pretty quick, especially for something with straight edges like the torso. You just line it up and you can snip the sides. You do want to kind of curl around the corners of the torso and then take off the bottom, and there you go. Pretty quick. I will also show how I would do it if I was cutting using a hobby knife. You just want to line it up and then kind of drag the knife through the mat and cut through the decal. It doesn't take that much longer than using the scissors, and you can get a precise cut. Personally, though, I just like using the scissors a bit more. Let's see. Okay. There we go. So, as you can see, there is a little bit of a tag right there, which I would probably cut off if I was going to be applying it right now. But there is the finished cut using a hobby knife. So now what I'm going to do is cut out the rest of these pieces, as well as the visors for the RP2 and AP2 style. And I will fast forward through that process and catch up with y'all once I've completed that. All right, so I've now finished cutting out all of the decals. I already showed you up close the two different torso cuts. I'll just go over each of the different ones. So legs are another one that is pretty simple. You just want to kind of get, again, as close to the design as you can without cutting the design itself. As you can see, there are like tiny white edges, which is fine. You just don't want to have excessive film on the edges of your decal. For legs in particular, like the sides, if you have too much on the sides, it'll hang off of the leg once you've applied the decal, which can kind of throw off the look of the legs. Now we've got the dome piece. Now this one, you're going to want to give a little thin place right here to go underneath the fin. You don't want it to be too thick right there. But again, you know, you're just kind of getting as close as you can to the design. These corners in particular, you do want to cover, you do want to cut out completely, because that is where a divot is. So if you have extra film there, it would go down inside that divot, which again, could throw off the look of the decal. For the breather piece, this one actually has some color on it, so you want to cut around all the color, but a lot of the characters use a breather that just has the two dots and the little breather part right there. For the ones without the color, you can cut a little bit closer, but obviously when you have the color, you just want to cut around it and make sure to get that little piece down in there and just give it to where it'll have enough space to cover that area completely. Then we have the chin piece. With this one, you want to make sure especially to cut as close as you can down in this area. Otherwise, you'll have excess that rides up on the helmet, which can lead to creasing. But again, just get as close as you can to that design. And finally, for the 2020 style of decal, we have the helmet piece. There's nothing really in particular you got to do for this one. You know, just, again, follow the edges, get as close to that design as you can. Now, the AP2 and RP2 designs are very similar. The main differences is just in the designs themselves. But for these, again, you're just kind of cutting as close as you can. You can see on this RP2 one, I did leave some white right there because with the way it applies, it won't show up that much. As you decal a lot, you'll kind of remember which places will show up if you leave extra bits, but it's a good rule of thumb, just cut as close as you can. I did go ahead and cut out a visor for the AP1 and RP1 Cody, just to show you the AP1 helmet style, how to cut this, because there's actually a trick that I use. If you cut a thin slice up above the mouth right there, as you can see, it helps the decal go on better without creasing, because just with the shape of the helmet and the shape of the decal, you are prone to creasing right in here when you apply it. That little slice helps to prevent that, and using micro saw helps as well. For the RP1, it is very similar. You can get a little bit of a slice up in there. I don't think it's as needed on the RP1, just due to the different mouth shape. Actually didn't cut all the way up on this side, but so you just want to kind of gently go up in there. Hold on. Let's see. You gotta do it slowly so you don't accidentally cut into the decal itself, but just get a little slit right there, and there you have it. So finally, for the final part of the video, I'm just going to cover cutting out cloth. I'll show you the whole process because it won't take too long. For the outer portion of it, it's very similar to decals. You know, you're just cutting as close to the design as you can. Now for cloth especially, you want to get the lines very even, because in any extra white that you leave will be hanging off and will kind of throw off the look of the cloth piece if you have too much white. Let's see. And the scissors, these that I have right here, they work great for cutting cloth as well. But there actually is one part that the knife is best for. So as you can see, there is a little hole in the middle of this cloth piece, and that is where the neck of the figure is going to go. It's kind of difficult to get that with scissors, so I really like to use an X-Acto knife for that part of it. Let's see. Let's finish this up real quick. And there we go. So as you can see on the edges, there's a little bit of white, but I did manage to get most of it off. I actually might trim it slightly using an X-Acto knife. You're able to get a pretty tight cut with X-Acto, in case you want to trim a little bit of the white edges. Okay, so now all that's left to do is cut out this little center portion of it. And now what I like to do is just kind of get my knife and press down along the edge, and then kind of, that was some thunder. All right, I don't know if you could hear that, but it just thundered outside, so yeah. You're going to just kind of press around the circle, and it goes pretty quick. Just kind of trim the entire edge until you've gone all the way around. You want to use one hand to hold the cloth set firmly on the cutting mat, and use the other hand to cut into it using the X-Acto knife. You might get fully around like this and still have a little bit hanging on, and in that case, all you gotta do is find where it's hanging on and go cut that particular spot to finish off the job. Okay, good night. All right. So that is the finished product for the cloth set. I'll go over more on this in the final portion of the series, because you do want to fold this a certain way. If you put it on as is on the figure, you know, it'll just lay flat on their shoulders like this. So you do need to bend it a certain way in order to get the desired shape. And that'll be covered in part 4 along with sealing the figure. So that's going to do it for this video. There's going to be another one posted tomorrow, part 3, which will be covering the process of applying the decals. So I'll just go over the different helmet shapes and using the micro set and saw. I'll apply some using micro set and saw, some without, just to kind of show you how it differs. Yeah, thanks for watching.